What can I do for you guys?
Sing a song.
Oh, no.
Don't have to.
I don't know it. It would have been awesome. I don't even slightly know it. Like, I haven't played that song in 10 years. It's a good song.
Is that a consolation?
No.
Do you have any else?
Oh, I didn't even mean music.
Stories.
Stories? I don't know. What do you guys want? Tell us about this. It wasn't even a good, like, dramatic, shitty day. It was just like a... yeah, the last couple of days have been really hard because of... I posted... Well, have you guys done that? Do you guys know... Have you guys followed this thing that's been going on?
I have no idea.
Okay, so I have a record coming out next month called Evelyn Evelyn that I made with my friend Jason Webley. And it's a beautiful, beautiful record. And it has a really sordid backstory because it was technically made by these conjoined twin sisters. And they've had a really, really rough life, including lots of really, really awful things happening to them. And I put this all on a blog a couple of days ago. And some people were really offended by my blog. And it was interesting because there were like 4 different levels of people that were offended. And, and I was like trying to grapple with, like, if it had just been like one kind of person that was offended for one kind of reason, I would have like been like, okay, I can focus on this. But it was actually, it was kind of more of a shitstorm than that. And so I got really depressed, and Jason got really depressed, and then everybody got really depressed, and then everybody got really angry and confused, and you know, it's funny because I turned to the internet so much for love. and then all of a sudden it wasn't giving me love, it was giving me grief. And so I was, you know, I actually, instead of spending the last 2 days like working on music, which was my secret plan, I actually just ended up kind of dealing with this. And, you know, thinking about it and talking with all sorts of people about it and really trying to figure out what to do, because doing nothing was not an option. And it was hard.
I don't understand what people like, why people objected. It's been in the pipeline for so long, and it's, you know, a beautiful idea.
Here's the thing. Here was one of the complicating parts, is that I've gotten a lot of new audience lately, and they don't know me. And this is dangerous. And it actually, I mean, in a way, like every time something fucked up happens like this, it's usually good in the long run, even though it's really painful when it happens, because it's a really good reminder to me not to take this for granted. You know, not to take for granted the fact that like everyone just gets me and understands my sense of humor and understands me, and that I can just kind of like run around doing whatever I want, expecting that everyone will just like immediately be there with me, understanding what all of my intentions are all the time, kind of expecting all of my fans to like be my best friend and to know exactly where I'm coming from all the time. Because I do expect that.
Yeah.
You know, and I love that. Like I like expecting that. That's what makes it awesome. But then all of a sudden, you know, it's like that unsettling feeling when you know someone really, really well, like a, you know, like a lover or something that you've been with for years, and then all of a sudden they do something that you just were not expecting, and you freak out because you're like, oh, he's not that. And it sort of feels like that, because you know, I sort of look at my fan base and my audience as kind of one relationship. You know, and it's often multi-dimensional, but it usually, like, you know, it moves, you know, it moves, like, even when it moves unpredictably, it's usually understandable and controllable to me. And then when, you know, when something like this happens and people get really, really angry, and my usual reaction to that is to go like, oh, well, you misunderstood me, this and this and this, and you know me, and of course, da, da, da. And usually people are like, oh yeah, of course, I'll be know you, da, da. But in this case, it wasn't really like that, because these people didn't really know me. And so I couldn't just pull the, you know, well, obviously, since I'm Amanda Palmer and I've done all these things in my life, like, rah, 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 because it didn't carry any weight. So it freaked me out.
And that worked with Oasis, didn't it? You kind of went, no, but I didn't mean it like that. It was supposed to be ironic and you know.
Yeah, well, you know, I've
Yeah.
been thinking a lot about Oasis because that was like the big last sort of controversy over something I did. And I wrote a blog today about the Evelyn thing, and I wrote a whole little piece about Oasis as related to this, and I just took it out because I was like, it's a little too tangential. But the thing about Oasis, and this is actually really, the whole thing is kind of weird. The thing about Oasis is that as unsettling as it is, and I wrote about this when it came up, for you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, the Oasis was the song of this funny, peppy, upbeat song I wrote about rape and abortion. Thank you. And I had this like secret card that I could play, which is like, oh, I've had an abortion. And I've, you know, basically been date raped. I could tell you all the story if you want to hear it. And everyone was like,
But you've never been a conjoined twin.
I've never been a conjoined twin. And, I mean, most of the people leveling a lot of the criticism haven't either.
Yeah.
And a lot of them... Well, and you know, one of the most fucked up things is that it never occurred to me that they were disabled. They're not. They're like able conjoined twins.
Yeah.
So these people who got really angry, there was a specific faction of people who got really angry who were disabled, saying like, you are like
I read it.
doing a bad thing. And I was like, ugh. So, you know, so I couldn't, you know, I couldn't pull my like, well, I've obviously been disabled for years.
That might be harder to spin.
Yeah, no, that would have actually just been a lie. But, you know, I have had disabled people in my life, you know, and I have a lot of disabled fans. Like I have hardcore fans in the States who like come to all my shows in wheelchairs, and I know them. And these people actually sort of stood, when they saw this happening, they were like, we don't agree, by the way. And I was like, thank you. But yeah, it's just, it was a creepy couple of days. I don't know, it doesn't really have a happy ending. But
Yeah.
the album,
Yeah.
this is it, this is the happy ending. Well, the album's great, that's the
Yeah.
happy ending. I hope that when people hear the record, because the hardest part for me about all of this is that this is all happening and no one's heard the record.
Yeah.
So it's all just like this kind of this floating bullshit.
Yeah.
And the record is really good and it's really funny. And I think when people hear it, you know, and I've noticed, because the record has been ready and people have been listening to it and no one has taken offense to the actual record. So I think my blog just had the wrong tone of voice because people didn't get the overarching humor, or if they did,
Or
it
a
was
couple of
just,
the wrong people read it, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've got those, you know, like Francis is singing on it, you know, all these, you know, famous celebrities supposed to be singing on it. So I guess
Yeah.
it's a
Oh, they are.
publicity that, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess wouldn't necessarily.
Um,
That, you know, brings in people who are not as ashamed to.
yes, actually that might
say.
be why. And Neil's fans, most of whom are awesome.
Which is funny, right? Because, you know,
Some of
he
them
writes
too.
about murder, he hasn't murdered anyone, but, you know, he's still allowed to write about murder or, you know, certain things that
They're
novel's
not.
allowed to.
Yeah, well, no, that's a really good point. But you know what? So there was that faction of people. There was actually another faction of people who were angry that they had believed it. I was like, well, that brings up the Blair Witch question, doesn't it? And the J.T. Leroy question, and the question of fiction and art and stuff, and that I didn't really feel quite as responsible for. That was kind of the point.
They spent the last 3 years since the EP thinking this was all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I still can't officially comment on any of this. Except to say, and the right twin. So I should play some music, this is ridiculous. I don't want to.